Hello, Trev here, Trevs Bees, YouTube and Facebook. Today's little exercise is going to be about marking queens. Yeah, right, now, queen marking kits. This is a complete kit. Has 5 bottles of paint in it, like this. And comes with a little catching cage. I don't like these cages, so I don't use them. Little bottles of ink are much like fingernail polish in that they've got a little stick on them, but they have a little plastic insert here which is designed to wipe the shaft off so you don't get a big blob of paint. And when it comes out, it leaves a little blob of paint right on the end of the stick. But it's the pressure in there actually means that you've got to use 2 hands to get it out. So I made a little box, and now I can lift that stick out without causing a problem. And then I can put a little blob of paint like that on the thorax of the queen. There's 5 colours, as I said: white, yellow, red, green and blue, and they correspond to the years. So we know how old the queen is when we see her. We can also use this correcting correcting pen. It's got a little fine tip on here. You need to make sure that this is running very well before you start to use it. You can't obviously go jabbing that into the back of the queen, otherwise you're going to kill her. And that's not the object of the exercise. I quite like these Uniposco pens. Again, they're available in all different colours. Not always easy to get, but I've got a little method of how I use these things. Give them a stir up. Because we're at the hive, we've caught the queen. I put the nib is spring loaded, so when you actually push on it, it ejects a little bubble of paint. So what I do is I put a big bubble of paint on the side of the box, and then I pick up a bit of paint, and then I only have to touch that on the queen and I can get a perfect little mark. So how do we catch the queen? We can use the cage and just drop that over the top of her. The only trouble is she runs around in there and she's relatively difficult to mark through the cage. I usually catch her by my fingers, and then I transfer them to my other hand. That's time for another video. But I just recently purchased this. This is called a one-hand queen catcher. It's got a little slidey tool on here, like a curtain. And on the end of it is a queen extractor, a queen excluder. So the workers can get out through this mesh, but of course the queen can't. A little bit of sponge in here so you don't hurt the queen, and a little bit of tolerance so when she gets squeezed, when you push this up, she doesn't get killed. But it's got little stops inside here so it can't come right to the top. So we can see, don't know whether you can see that. There is a little gap between here and the foam. That's enough room for the queen to sit there, be held still, and not get out. How do we use it? Quite simple. Wind the door back and the plunger back. We sit that over the top of the queen, and usually a few worker bees, and then gently slide the little curtain across. And as you slide the curtain across gently, the worker and the queens will pop up inside the container. Now we have the queen inside here. We can see her running around with 3, 4, half a dozen workers, however many you happen to pick up. Then we can slide the little barrel up. As we slide that barrel up, the workers will pop out. Quite often they'll stay on top of the carrier, the catcher, and I just brush them aside. When you push it all the way up, the queen will always end up lined up nice and neatly with the top. At that stage, you can then pick that up, do your marker test, and put a little blob of ink, paint on top of her, and there she's marked. Once she's marked, I then pull the door back down, with a little plunger back down, so the queen can settle down. Paint dries. When I'm ready to let her out, I put that over the top of the hive and just sit it there like that. The queen can now run away. Heads down through the hive. I always keep current year paint in my little carrier. The others are just spares. I made this little queen cage or queen carrier. So when I'm checking the hives, I quite often find there's 2 and even 3 queens in a hive. Usually mother and 2 daughters, or mother and daughter. Sometimes I guess a pair of sisters. But because I mark my queens, I know that they are new queens. Then I make my mind up. Am I going to separate the queens, split the hive, or what I'm going to do? So first off, I will catch the queen. And usually it's grab her, or I put that down and herd her into it. She's perfectly safe in here. She can't get out. Workers can't get in. And I just leave that sitting on top of the hive. Or sometimes I'll put it in my overalls pocket. By the time I get through the hive, I may have found the old queen, may have found another queen. I'll then make up my mind whether I'm going to make a split or what I'm going to do with it. Sometimes I will put queen in a normal queen introduction cage. If I'm doing that, this is an old cage, and I just put a bit of tape over there. I can suspend that in the hive, put that in the hive as it is, just with the queen in there, and come back a couple of days later. I'll let the queen out, all done. So I always carry a couple of them around. So that's it for the queen kit. What we're going to do is we're going to go into this hive here and see if we can find the queen, capture her and mark her. Now you may also notice that I always wear these little blue gloves. They're called nitrile double tough gloves. You'll have seen them on one of my other videos. I like these. They're nice and thin. The bees don't tend to sting through them very often, but I can actually hold the queen in my hand. So let's go and mark a queen, shall we? Okay, let's go in here and see if we can find a queen and mark her. So I'm ready to cage the queen in here. You can slide the door down very carefully. I can have a look in here to see that I've got the queen. Yes, she is in here. Now when I push the little tray up, all the worker bees will climb out. So I can put her there. She is nicely trapped in line with the, take my marker out, put a nice blob on it, so she's got a mark on her, pull the door down so she can still walk around in there a little while the paint dries. When I'm happy, I can then put it down here by that, and there goes the queen. She now walks out and walks free with her nice blue crown. Okay, well, you've seen how I mark my queens. One last thing that I do is I've got a little piece of paper inside the lid, and I've now put on today's date and the colour of that queen. So when I take the lid off, I can see that the queen, what the queen colour is, and any other such thing. Now for starters, when you go to mark your first queen, it's a bit terrifying. The last thing you want to do is squeeze her, kill her, then you end up with a queenless hive. So I suggest that you practice on the drones. They don't sting. If you kill a couple in the process, it doesn't really matter, so long as you learn. You can learn to catch the drones in your hand, catch them with one hand by the wings, transfer them to your fingers, and then mark between there, or you can use my queen marking type of kit that I've got. So that's it for queen marking. That's it for this episode of Trevs Bees on YouTube and Facebook. Please remember to subscribe to our channel on Facebook, on YouTube. That way you'll get an email of the updates as we put them out, and we'll catch you around in the beehive.